You're listening to the powerhunter3s gamercast. Hey guys, just figured I'd let y'all know, if you guys like my content dealing with my podcast, you guys can come watch me live at twitch.tv/powerhunter3. I play video games most of the week, and if you guys are not interested in that but you want to get involved in the podcast, you guys can 100% check it out. I do my podcast every Monday, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. And the podcast is live, everybody. So how y'all doing, everybody? You guys having a wonderful night? Hopefully you guys are, because it's going to be an awesome night. I'm going to be talking about the gamercast and the podcast itself, and where I see it growing into, and what I feel like it should become. Now, it could bite me in the ass, you never know. But I do have plans about this podcast. I'm thinking I might change it. No, I'm not gonna just tell you in about 30 seconds and I'm boom bang done. No. Gotta just kind of, start it off from scratch, But, regardless, essentially what we're gonna start off with change, subject matter, just kind of quick refresher on stuff like that. Essentially, I originally made my podcast to be one thing and one thing only. Well, sorry, not one thing, but many things related to video games, content creation, technology, and a bunch of other things along those lines. And I plan on keeping that in mind, for sure. Might keep it in mind for the future. Just call it like might create a second channel just dedicated to it, because it's always a good idea if you're gonna have different subject matter. It's better to have them separate on two different channels. With that said, as I said earlier, a couple of minutes ago, sometimes you got to change it up and try new things. Change is necessary sometimes because it usually makes you risk. But sometimes it might bite you in the ass, and sometimes it might be the best thing ever. So as I said, I'm planning on changing my podcast. For the time being, I'm thinking I might turn it into something along the lines of focusing it as a Destiny related podcast, but not in the sense of what most people would expect. Most podcasts or lore videos would be dedicated to lore or gameplay of Destiny 2. I'm thinking I might change it up a little bit for some. Sorry, I'm thinking of changing it up to something just a little bit different. I'm thinking of changing the subject to creating a channel, a podcast that will be dedicated to reading backstories for characters. I plan on doing a podcast that reads off, as I said earlier, backstories created by the community for their characters, how they came to be, mission stories that I think would be intriguing. Instead of just a standard lore video that's built into the game, instead of lore that's built into the game made by the developers, I'm thinking of doing a little community thing where the premise will be the community makes their own in layman's terms, has their character have a backstory, or has a story of a mission they went on that wasn't in the game, or getting together at an in-game bar. You could essentially say it would be like the backstory for a Dungeons and Dragons character, where you create your own backstory for each character, for a character you create. I'm thinking of doing that with Destiny characters. The characters that players create. I'm planning on doing that because it would be a little different than most people would have thought of. Most people would expect, okay, we're just gonna have a little backstory. But the way I'm gonna do it is it's going to, in a roundabout way, make the story of your character per se canon to the person who makes it. And makes it essentially official. An official canon that was made by the person for the character that they play the most, or they play in general, or even all three characters if they decide to. Make it a lore. Hell, some of you might even make a lore video, a lore book style. For example, like the Book of Lies, or something along those lines. Or any of the lore books in game. Make it a multi-chapter stage for your character. Or you just make the one lore page just to kind of quickly go through the lore for your character that you designed. Be a nice little something different. Essentially, the way it would be viewed in my eyes would be, of course, I'd have to put limitations on certain things because you know, content related stuff along those lines. You can't really can't really say a lot of things, but I'm gonna keep it some around the levels of normalcy that would be expected in a Destiny lore page. But the character would be, or even the ghost of your character, or even a group of yous together, getting to have a backstory for each character involved. And I plan on turning my podcast into either a monthly or a weekly, I'm still debating on that portion, either a weekly or a monthly thing, dedicating the lore stories of each player that does it to make their character a character that actually has something, instead of just, oh, he's just a character. I mean, I've been playing this game since the beginning, and I've had some pretty wild stories in the back of my head a few times about my character, about my hunter. Hell, my titan and my warlock as well, but mostly my hunter. And they're all, typically, all of them are kind of offshoot and way out there, like mixing games, kind of lore, but which would not make any sense in Destiny unless you found some way to mingle the idea of each into the game. But I digress. It's going to be the way I plan on it is I'm gonna have to see if I can pull it off. I hope I can pull it off. I plan on turning my podcast into a Destiny story channel, and it's going to involve community work, because I plan on making, because the stories of your character, whether fictional or otherwise, would love to be heard from many people. Because you could say it, some could say it's fiction because it's not in the lore of the actual game, but it is still would be classed it's still in a roundabout way would be classed as lore, because if you remember from back in Destiny 1, for those who are Destiny 1 veterans, become legend. Well, we really haven't actually gotten a way to show off our legend. We've just made characters kick some ass and went out and got loot. But it'd be nice to actually put a backstory to that. Say you're a hunter, as an example. I could say warlock or titan, but just bear with me on this. I'm trying to keep it simple because I'm a Destiny hunter. Main. Say you're a hunter and you are doing a bounty, going out to hunt some fallen commander from a stronghold out in the middle of nowhere. And you could change that. You can put that subject to something else, regardless how you look at it. It could be in the future, it could be in the past, but a backstory would definitely start off something along those lines. Say you're going through, and then all of a sudden, your character gets swarmed by a few hive that you were not expecting, and then you run into some hive commander that wasn't supposed to be there, or was not supposed to be there because he does not exist in what's the term? What is the in the lore of the hive from the world's grave, if I'm to remember. And nobody knows about this hive god that went off the radar. He or she miraculously becomes this hive god without the help of a worm god or something like that. And your character, hunter or otherwise, barely survives that. But eventually comes out victorious. Only to find that the fallen commander that he was supposed to be on a bounty for ended up being killed by a stray hive bolt or something along those lines, and you end up tracking down the hive or the target responsible for taking your mark. Or something along those lines, you know? That was just one example. You could even have it as a crucible backstory where your character became a legendary crucible warrior said to be comparable to Lord Shaxx in his prime. Or you could be a Dredgen in Gambit. Or you could be one of many raid teams that went into the Vault of Glass and only made it in so far and never came and got in through and defeated one variation of Atheon, or got stuck in a timeline and somehow miraculously got pulled out. Or because of how expansive Destiny is, your backstory can literally be nearly anything you want. It is your character's backstory, so reality is you could literally make it anything you want. And being that Bungie, the Destiny community, and some content creators out there love content, it might intrigue some people to actually say, hey, I like having a backstory. Here's my official backstory. And it might even cause some Bungie devs to do the same thing, but you never know. That's way out the line. Who knows? But it's one thing that I've noticed that has been somewhat lacking in this game, is a way to introduce. Fuck. That's not what I was trying to say, by the way. But to introduce backstory to your character that makes your character's story unique. Hell, your character could even be a loot pirate or something like that. Just say he or she is out collecting loot or stealing from fallen supply lines or something along those lines, or even tracking Cabal through the frozen tundra that never exist, that as they're trying to survive too. Or you can even be a perpetual dungeon runner in the Shattered Throne. You can be a perpetual, never-ending Shattered Throne dungeon crawler, trying to find a way to break the curse through the Shattered Throne. It's one of those things that makes this game so out there, unique, and because of how big it is and expansive it is, there's so much you can add to the story. And as a Destiny 1 veteran, you can go way as far back as beta if you want. Just say you are one of the first Guardians to revive. And you create a story based around that. It's a concept that I've been keeping in the back of my head for a while. I've been trying to get the gumption to actually get it out there. Say that this is what I want to do with it. And go from there. Now that I've put it out there, now I gotta actually edit it out. You throw this on podcast on YouTube and Spotify, and then I gotta go into TikTok and basically do a shortened version of this podcast on TikTok because it's only 1 minute long at the longest. But while there's a lot of things this game is not, that isn't involved in this game, and I'm not going to knock the game for it because I love Destiny. But I will definitely say one thing that is missing is a community story built around the characters you create. Mostly because adding all that story would actually backfire and make the game so fucking massive that there would be nothing left of the game to be able to play. It would literally be just a storybook. So it's one of those things that it would be cool to watch. A cool idea. I'm planning on changing it all around and getting it all started up sometime in September. I could be off on that, but I plan on doing it in September. I plan on getting everybody set up, raring to go, get a couple of stories ready to rock, ready to roll, get everything all set up and ready to rock, raring to go, and go from there. Because having a community backstory podcast and YouTube videos connected to it is something that I've noticed is not there. And if it is there, I haven't really been paying much attention, but I haven't really noticed it at all. I haven't seen anybody actually make a community podcast, a community backstory channel where they read the backstory for a community. Sorry, let me take this back a little bit. I've not seen any content creator out there that has made, for Destiny, a backstory lore channel, essentially, dedicated to community members of the game. And I thought, why not be the first? If not the first, then one of the few. And I want to see where it goes. And as I said, sometime in September, I'm probably closer to the time I'm going to actually post when I'm doing it, but I'm planning on doing it in September. So mark September on your calendars. I plan on doing that in September. Change everything all around and get everything all set up for that, and go from there. It's going to be I plan on hoping it to be an enjoyable time. And it'll be awesome. In my eyes. Someone else could say it's not awesome, but that's okay. It's a way to involve the community to creating something for their character. So, I figured, why not? I haven't seen very much on it. The closest thing I've seen so far for it would be the D&D Destiny project. I'm on their Discord. I've got to get back active on that Discord, but still. It would be a great thing to involve that sort of community, or even just the community as a whole. And if they want to get involved into some of the D&D Destiny project action, they at least have a starting point for their first character in D&D Destiny. So yeah, that's the plan. That's my plan with the podcast channel. Might change the title along with it, but regardless, it's still going to be the same damn podcast, just with one set of content instead of multiple pieces that are different each time. I'll definitely be keeping everything there. I'll just change it. Be changing a few things. So yeah, guys, that's the podcast. So, anybody got any questions about my idea? Anybody have questions on the podcast, on the idea for my podcast? The change on my podcast? Ah, yes, now I remember. Alright, so I guess there's no questions. I guess I'm gonna just say that will be the podcast that'll be the podcast. Alright, so thank you all once again for coming over. Listen to me ramble once again. And, yeah. I'll be posting this on YouTube sometime later, tomorrow, sometime or something like that. But I'll be getting it all set up for the pod set up. And, yeah. Thank you all once again. Everybody on YouTube and everybody on Spotify, you guys have a wonderful time. I will talk to you guys later. You just heard the powerhunter3 gamercast. Check me out at twitch.tv/powerhunter3.